don't know at what point I started following my Pang or Microsoft. I don't know. But I have been following her for years now for her art, the tattoos, the symmetrical tattoo art on her body, her whole appearance is just angelic. I'm definitely fangirling over her. And when I saw that she is collabing with Blendbunny Cosmetics, I didn't even have to see the palettes. I was 100% sure I will get this. Luckily, I am on Blendbunny's PR list, so that was even better because I was like, oh my god, how privileged am I that I get the whole collection. So let's talk about it. We have 3 products in that collection. I'm starting with the first one, the Blue Tears Lip Glaze. I'm wearing it right now. Then we have a 6-pan eyeshadow palette, the Efflorescence palette, that contains 6 very, very stunning iridescent shades. So these are, and I want to say that right away, while these are topper shades, iridescent topper shades, I mean, you see it on my eyes. I'm wearing just one. They are quite impactful. They do have a certain punch to them, and even in the swatches, usually iridescent shades, I don't know what it is, but they're quite hard to capture in my opinion. But these, not so much. It worked very, very well. It was easy to capture them, and even in the video, you just see that each of these iridescent shades is different enough from the other one to have an impact in that collection. Because when I initially looked at the palette, I was like, yeah, why do we have 2 blues? And I think that was also a critical comment that I made when I talked about the collection and You Don't Need That Shit. But now that I see the 2 blues, yes, I understand it. It makes sense. And the big item, like the big middle part of this collection, is the eyeshadow palette, a 20-pan all matte palette with mold. I was not expecting this, but these like bits here are like Velcro or something like that. They feel moldy, and I even gave this to my husband. I was like, here, touch the palette, like look at it. He was like, yeah, why is it molding, why is it rotten? And then he touched it and he was like, oh my god, that's genius. So even he is loving it. We're watching Microsoft together sometimes, so he's also a fan of her. Let's take a look into the eyeshadow palette. As said, it is a 20-pan, very, very scrambled together eyeshadow palette. I have to admit that I look at this and I am not pleased with what I see. This is very chaotic and very stressful to the eye, but it makes sense because mold is too. Mold is very chaotic sometimes, and I see that this just makes absolute sense. I know this is magnetic. Some people are rearranging the palettes. You know me, I could never and I will not do this. I just live it with it the way it is. And I also want to say that in my You Don't Need That Shit, I said the color story is not for me. It's way too olive, it's not my jive. But looking here at the swatches, this luckily does not turn as olive on me as I thought it will be. Even the olive shades, like Velvet looks very olivey, Serpula is this pukey one. They do turn a bit different on my skin tone, so it's okay for me to accept them. And overall, I would say this palette is just in general leaning warm. I think this is a warm-toned eyeshadow palette with some bits of cool pastels and some bits of grays. But even the gray, like organic, I feel like is leaning very much into a warm olive vibe. Overall, the matte eyeshadow palette in real life looks much more pleasing to me than on the pictures. So when it arrived, I opened it and I was like, oh, thank makeup god, it's not as olivey as I thought. So in the video here, I will create for you 3 eyeshadow looks. This is, by the way, look number 2, and give you then my final thoughts and review. If you want to get the palette, the whole collection, just a lip glaze, whatever, you can save 10% with my code ELLAKINKLEY on the Blendbunny website. Or if you don't want to order it from the States, you can also order it from Glisten Cosmetics in the UK and save 20% with my code. It's also ELLAKINKLEY. And now let's head into the review. I will probably never get tired of touching this palette. I love the sensory thing that is going on here. So let's create our very first look, and I have no idea what I'm going to do, so this is truly a just wing it situation today. I start with Asper, and I start to blend Asper here on the inner part, a little bit on the lid, a little bit in the crease, a little bit in the transition area, and I bring it up and out. I then pick up Serpula and I use this on the rest here in the crease, outwards, and in the transition area. I did use my Smashbox, the 24 Photo Finish whatever Intensify primer. That is very silicone-y based, and the very pastel yellow does go a little bit patchy on top, but that can be because of, well, it is a very bright pastel. They either need some building or they are just not blending well. That has nothing to do with Blendbunny. I have made this experience with other brands. Plus, this could be a little bit of a too thick primer so that it skips, and I will, for the remaining looks, use the Urban Decay because that's more like a thin spread of primer. So if your eyeshadow does not perform well on your eyeshadow primer, try a different one. Sometimes that truly makes a difference. At least for me, from what I have tried so far. And I've tried a lot. Next up, I go into, yeah, let's go into Histo. And I use this here on the outer lid part, outer crease for my depth. It's a very interesting first look, let's be honest. Very out of my comfort zone. But overall, it's a very nice, soft liner like that. And since we have in the Efflorescence palette 6 iridescent shimmers, I do want to use for each look 2. And I feel like for this one, since we have the warmer ones, Bloom and Wax will do this. Wax has a golden yellow shift and Bloom actually a pinky one. So what I do is I actually start with Bloom and I apply this on the outer half here of the lid. Or no, let's say outer 2/3, because I do want to connect the rest of the inner part shimmer then later with the inner corner highlight. If that makes any sense, but I think it does. The pink here combining in this look with this olive muddy puke shade that I used is actually so interesting because it breaks up the color a little bit. I am usually a full shimmer girl. You know, when I use metals, it has to punch you in the face, but I kind of like the vibe. So let's move on with Wax now. This here on the rest of the lid, and then I wiggle it into Bloom. I do want to add some contrast in this look, and I take Victoria Beckham's Cocoa, which once again, I have to sharpen it before I can apply it. So I line my waterline with that, and a little bit here on the skin. And then I take the buffer side of that and just immediately buff it out a little bit. I'm honest with you, I do not like the buffer at all. It's fine, it's an okay method, but it's way too stiff in my opinion. But I then take Histo again and use this on top and blend it out even further. On a pencil brush, I now take Asper And I use this slightly below to just lighten up that blend. Yeah, that blends so much better than on the upper lid, because here is no primer on, none of the silicone primer, so I assume that this has just to do with the thickness of the Intensify primer. I also apply a little bit of Asper on the inner corner here, just as a base. And then I pick up wax and apply that on top, connect it with the lid, and then I let it fade onto the lower lash line. And before we finish the first look, I definitely want to apply the Blue Tears lip glaze. I haven't used it yet. I haven't swatched it. I was hoping it smelled sweet. I don't know, but I like to sniff lip products, so let's... Oh boy. Okay, that is... yeah, that is intense. So pretty, but I don't think it matches this look. So let me take that off and pair it with another lip color. But for the other two looks, I will definitely use this. But here with the yellows and moldy shades, I feel like it does crash a bit. Okay, yes, that is much better. This is the Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb in the shade Riri. It was a gift with purchase from Sephora in one of my orders, I think. Or was it when I ordered from the Fenty website? I'm not 100% sure, but this is like a special 2 milliliter size. Again, it was a gift with purchase. Well, the look, I think we can all agree this is kind of out of my comfort zone because of the moldy shades, but I like the combo. I have been discovering yellow eyeshadow for me in combination with something dark. So for example, yellow and black. Oh, love this. Just the fading into. So the fade here from the yellow into the mold into the darker one, I think that is very, very pretty. Plus breaking it up a little bit with the pinky shimmer. So I'm very, very pleased with the first look, and I am even more excited now to show you the other two. I'm starting the look with Spora, and I apply this directly through the complete crease, and then I let it fade upwards. I then take a Chrominum, I think that's the right pronunciation. It's a bright or light pink. And I use this on the outer part to just tone it down a little bit. Next up I go into Marrow. Use this on the outer part here, blend it upwards. And I'm also using some on the inner part. Basically like a very, very messy halo eye here. And let's experiment here a little bit for a second. I'm just looking at my eye. I do have an idea. It's either now working or I'm going to destroy everything. But I take the shade Damp now. And I apply this in the center of my lid. I now tap into Florette or Flore. I don't know. And I start to tap this now in the center. And then I let it fade out left and right. I definitely need some contrast, so I take Urban Decay's Whiskey, and we're ignoring the fact that this is unsharpened once again. I just directly line my eye with that, and I pick up Marrow and smudge that on. On a pencil brush, I pick up, yeah, I take a Cremonium. I don't even know what that word means, I'm honest with you. But I use this to blur, but I use this to buff it slightly underneath. I also apply some of that here in the inner corner. And for the actual inner corner highlight, I take Lichen? How do you pronounce it? Because German, it's Lichen, because it's Lychen, and CH is a H in German. So is it Lichen? Educate me. But I take that beautiful shade and apply this on the inner corner Since this has a greeny shift, it does break up the look just a little bit with its green and gold and beauty. And of course, I'ma finish the look if I found my mirror with the Blue Tears lip glaze. I'm honest with you, the look came out much different than I actually did plan it, but it's okay. The look is like the palette, it's completely mixed up. I do absolutely enjoy, by the way, the thinness of this formula, while at the same time being so impactful. You know, the Blendbunny lip oils, they were good too, but they were a little bit too goopy, a little bit too thick. This one is like a very thin gloss, but it is see-through the same time it is covering stuff. So here we have now the second finished look, and now let's move on to look number 3. For the last look, I start with Whisper and apply this as my transition color. I then pick up Organic and I use this to deepen the crease. Then I pick up Mildew and I start to blend this in the crease center and bring it inwards. And then like I'd say 2/3 of the crease should be with that, or 3/4. The last little bit can be left empty because I want to implement the black this time too. So now I pick up Humid and use this to blend that on the outer V and outer crease. Now I pick up Loom from the Efflorescence, apply this on outer 2/3 of the lid. And then I also pick up Ripe and apply that on the rest of the lid, wiggling them together. For liner, I will be using ColourPop's Outer Space and line my waterline with that. I then pick up Humid and smudge that on the lower lash line. And then I take Organic, start smudging that from the center on inwards and then slightly below the black. For the inner corner highlight, I want to experiment a little bit, and I take Oxygen first and apply that here on the inner corner and blend it a little bit up and down. But I do pick up Ripe, tap this on top and connect it with the lid. Honestly, on top of the white, this is very, very soft. And here we have the last finished look. On the lips, I once again applied the Blue Tears lip glaze. I really like this one, especially in combo with this look. This is definitely my favorite look, but that is not a surprise. So let's now talk about the ratings of the two palettes. I just want to point out again how much I love the finish here and this moldy design. It's just genius. So let's start with the Rotten palette. In quality, I gave this actually a 9.5. It is very, very close on being like my favorite matte eyeshadow, minus the fact that they're not like, I don't know, like weirdly coated in the pan. So if you know what I mean. The Narimi eyeshadows, it's a C Beauty brand if you've never heard of them, but if you follow me, you probably have heard of them. They are the best mattes on the market, they by far. But they're a little bit weird. So when you touch them and when you swatch them, you can literally see that there is like layers of eyeshadow in the pan. I don't know if they're like weirdly layered and then dried down. I have no idea, but quality-wise, swatch-wise, this feels very, very similar without the weird thick layers. And I cannot give this a 10 out of 10 because the pastels here, they did not perform that good. They performed like you would expect pastels, so a little bit chalky, a little bit dry. But when I compare it to the Sickly Sweet palette, where are even neons and pastels in there, they are much better in formula. But the pastels are not the majority in this palette. We're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, I would say, that I put into the pastel category. And the rest is just chef's kiss wonderful. The swatches were so good. The application, the blending process, absolutely stunning. So that is a 9.5 out of 10 without a doubt. In color story, that is hard because I said it in the beginning that I thought this palette is not going to be for me, and I still think that this is a little bit too chaotic. But at the end, I do like what I did with the shadows, and I do like that I am a little bit challenged here to maybe think outside the box and just make up some new color combinations in my mind with looking at this chaotic mess here. And that's why I initially wanted to give the color story actually a 7 because also of the olives. But since they're not as olive on me and the color combos really work the way that I intended them to work, honestly, that's an 8. So in color story, I can happily give this an 8 out of 10. And same goes for my personal excitement then. That was also much, much lower because of my initial thoughts of this palette, but I was proven wrong, and I think with an 8 out of 10 in the personal excitement, this is a very, very fair rating. So overall, this palette scores an 8.5 out of 10. And other palettes in my collection that also have an 8.5 are, for example, the Dollhouse palette from Blendbunny. You know, one of the most boring, probably neutral eyeshadow palettes, but it's also an 8.5 because of the cool color story. The Icy Nude from Huda Beauty is also an 8.5, and the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Lights Moonlight, so the cool tone one that came out last year. But now, let's talk about the efflorescence. Blendbunny, you... I have no words. Quality, 9.5 out of 10. I wanted to give this a 10 out of 10 initially, but I decided to go with a 9.5 because, and that is not a Blendbunny problem, that is a iridescent eyeshadow problem. They are fallouty. Like, you can apply your glitter glue and then you can put the stuff on top of the glitter glue and you will still have a ton of fallout, but that is because of the iridescence here. It's like it's snowing the iridescent flakes on your face, and as long as the eyeshadow is not in the weird squishy formula, you will always experience this with these types of eyeshadows. I wouldn't also a squishy formula given 10 out of 10 because no, thank you. For me, there is still a little bit missing that I can give this a 10, but I think with a 9.5, we have here a nearly perfect iridescent formula. The color story, while I was initially saying that I don't know why we have so many like blues in here and all are so similar, they're not. The swatches show them. It's not. So honestly, a 6-pan iridescent eyeshadow palette with so much variation, that surprised me. So I give the color story a 10 out of 10, and my personal excitement for this is also at a 10 out of 10. So in total, the efflorescence scored a 9.8 out of 10, I'm sorry. And the Haggard Captive of Night is a 9.8 in my collection. And when I just look at Blendbunny, because I have a lot of Blendbunny palettes in the 9.8 rating, we have the Garden of Stars from the Alice Atlantis Volume 2, and my beloved Trove Quad is also at a 9.8 out of 10. So that is a sign, Blendbunny. You need to bring back the Trove Quad. I will never get tired asking for the Trove Quad or for the formula of the Trove to come back because it's so good. But this is like the iridescent sister of Trove. So if you do not like super impactful in your face shimmers and metallics and duochromes, these shifty iridescent shades are definitely the way to go. And I mean, look at my eye look, to be honest. I don't think that it is that obvious that these shift like transparent because they are very, very impactful. So overall, this collection is a hit. I have to admit that it is a hit. I was very, very skeptical, as said, for the big palette because of the oliveness, because of the chaotic design, but I was once again proven wrong. And that happened with Blendbunny a couple times in the past, that I was like, oh yeah, I do not like that. I don't think that this is good. I don't think that this will wow me. And then it shows up in person, whether it's purchased or here with PR. I'm just proven wrong, but I do have still some things to criticize, but I think that's a valid criticism. For me, the biggest surprise just was that the Big Rotten palette is not as olive as it looks in the pictures, which is a big, big plus for me. And I know that all of you are always commenting, yeah, but you look so good in olive. I know. I know that this is a color that actually suits me, depending on how I made it, but I just do not like it. You know, I think pink can also suit me, but I just do not like it. That's just the thing here. And for me, it's just a very positive surprise that it does not turn that olive on me. It could turn olive on different skin tones, you know, color theory, how that works. So if you are in my skin tone, so we're talking a MAC NC10ish, then this might not show up as olive as on the promo pics. So I think I said it already, but I will say it again. I was sent the whole collection in PR by Blendbunny, so thank you very much for sending this over. If you want to get one of the bits or something else or the whole collection, you can save 10% with my code ELLAKINKLEY on the Blendbunny website, or 20% with the same code on the Glisten Cosmetics website. The links is all down below. So now I'm curious, of course, what are your thoughts? What was your favorite look that I did? For me, definitely this, although I have to say the first one with the yellow, close, because I'm really digging yellow into dark eyeshadow looks, because that's just very pretty. So share your thoughts down below if you have this collection, if you have the eyeshadows. Also give us your thoughts so others can see your opinion too. Thank you so much for joining. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the other upcoming videos, and I see you very, very soon.